What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another edition, the second edition of the NBA Betting Show. I'm your host, the spitting statistician, Dane Martinez. We've got some sharps in the building. Hide the women and children. You might get stuck. We are so sharp. We got our guy, Sam Choudhury, and, of course, our boy, Noops. You can see him on Hoops with Noops and the like. So last week, we did all right. Mike Randall joined us. We got Sam joining us this time around. Sam, I want to ask you one thing. I got Noops kind of thoughts going into the season premiere, going into opening night. Just if we could take a 30,000 foot view of this, right? Kind of the big picture of it all. What are some of the things you are seeing in the league? What do you think are some of the big storylines we can expect in the NBA this season? We talked about everything from kind of the changing of the guard as some of the old Vanguard stars are sunsetting, some of the new faces of the league, some of the teams that we expect to kind of take steps forwards. There are levels to this stuff. We also talked a little bit about Bronny James, but as Anthony Edwards said, he didn't even need a shower. He didn't sweat that much. He's good, brah. So, Sam, let me ask you, what are some of the things you are looking for here early in the NBA season?
Well, I think the first couple of weeks, I mean, you mentioned it. It's always the up-and-coming guys. You got to sort of pay attention to them because you see their trajectory go up and up. Like Anthony Edwards, for example, specifically, we just saw him last night ball out. You know, he was a big breakout guy coming into the season. So definitely pay attention to some of those guys when they come out hot. But for me personally, just from a prop standpoint, it's really just betting on teams that I'm more comfortable with without a lot of change from one off season to the next. You know, the Knicks, for example, they're one where I had no idea what it's going to look with Bridges, Karl Anthony Towns now. So the first game I sort of wanted to shy off. And then, I mean, the past couple of days, you know, I've specifically been hammering Karl Anthony Towns under. I think some of his props were sort of based on his usage in Minnesota. And he did have a pretty good preseason. So it made sense why some of those lines were inflated to start. But some of those stuff where you see with new teams, if there is something that you think is sticky, and specifically when you look at the underlying data, you know, with such as rebound chances, potential assists, that's something you do want to pay attention to and something you can carry over for the next game. It's kind of tough to look at matchups specifically, unless it's a team like Orlando that we know is stout defensively year in year out, and it looks the same right now. So I don't want to glom on too much about specific matchups, but yeah, again, I just want to bet on guys and teams without a lot of continuity and sort of that I've been comfortable with dating back to last season.
Yeah, fair enough, Sam. I mean, you talked about the Orlando Magic real quick. If you happen to ladder Paolo Banchero the other night, I think you did okay with that effort. Hey, Noops, we're going to get into one of your plays, but I remember one of the things I was going back and forth with you about even after our show was with that new arena in Los Angeles, the Intuit Dome, right? The $2 billion playground out there for Ballmer. He's trying to be down with the crew, and they've got that big old fan wall right there. And I wondered, you know, in that first game against Phoenix, you had Booker and Durant missing free throws and being like, this might be a thing. What do you think about the new home palatial estate for the Clippers?
It's beautiful. What a fun thing to have, because honestly, as someone that watches a lot of these games on League Pass, Dane, there's not really a great reason to watch the Clippers for the most part. I mean, you get to see James Harden doing his thing from time to time, and Ty Lue is a great coach. He always finds ways to make things interesting, but the cutaways to the arena is really interesting. That wall seems to be a thing. I mean, again, I assume players will adjust as they tend to, but Durant had even talked about it. You know, he noticed it. It definitely made a little bit of a difference for him. So it's really fun. And it warms my heart, you know. Fans matter. We can make a difference, you know. I remember the first time that a referee looked at me when I realized you could look up their names online. You can look up their names, people, so you can yell directly at them. And in that moment, I felt like I made a difference. And I want everyone else to have an experience like that. So thank you, Clippers, for giving us something to be excited about.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that they have the t-shirt toss in that building also, where they have the guys on that big screen kind of mimicking what they're doing, and then the t-shirts flying out there. And Noops, I am with you. I also realized when I could make an impact when I had Joakim Noah turn around and definitely hear what I was saying to him once. What was I saying? Well, that's a different topic for a different day. Let's get into the action here. We got an 11-game slate here on a Wednesday. Nobody in the NBA plays tomorrow on Halloween. So everybody, really, a lot of games on the slate. 11 to be exact. And Nuke, I want to start with you. Boston Celtics and the Indiana Pacers. And I say this because, you know, I'm prepping the show, right? And I saw that last week you picked on opening night for the Celtics against the Knicks. You had Celtics in the first quarter. You had Celtics in the first half. Tonight, the Celtics are in action, and you have the Celtics in the first quarter and the Celtics in the first half. The Celtics have been a runaway train, scoring monstrous amounts of points, putting up monstrous amounts of threes. Tell me why you like this play again in Indiana.
Yeah, it's a play you're going to see again this season. The Boston Celtics last year, one of the best teams against the spread in the first half, in the first quarter. Again, this season, we've seen it so far through, I believe, 4 games they've had so far. 3 covered these numbers pretty comfortably. The Bucks got them the other day, but it's just a thing where you look at the team and the way Missoula sets things up. The first quarters and first halves are all about lineups. They're all about what coaches want to do. Certain coaches come in, they've got a plan. They want to push real hard for the first 12 to 24 minutes of games, try and grab a lead so they can control the game. Other teams are happy to sort of come in, feel things out, make adjustments at halftime, and then really attack those last 2 quarters. Boston is the latter. They really come into games. Azula knows the value of coming in, playing as fast and as hard as they can, get those threes up, get them in, build a big lead. Again, allows you to have control over the game so they can do what they want in the second half. Indiana is not one of those teams, one of the worst teams in the NBA against the spread, first quarter, first half last year. This is something we've seen with Rick Carlisle teams for years when he was in Dallas as well. For some reason, he just doesn't seem to put as much effort or influence into that. I'm not really sure exactly. I had a chance to dive down and explain it for Rick Carlisle himself, but the way this lines up, I have the Celtics winning the first quarter pretty comfortably. It's only -1.5. The first half there, you can see -3.5. Honestly, I'd play in the first quarter -2 or better. First half -4.5 or better. I think there's still plenty of edge there as well. So Celtics early and Celtics early often. That's going to happen a lot this year, Dane.
Yeah, fair enough. Listen, the way they are playing right now, I can't be mad at it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You talk about the way Missoula opens the game and kind of organizes in that way. And here's the funny part, Noops. You had first quarter, you had first half of the Boston Celtics in our opening night, kind of debut episode of the NBA betting show. And by the way, you got to subscribe, you got to hammer that like button. And if you want to be down with us, get us into the comments. We will respond to them during the show as well. But Noops, on opening night, one of the plays I had for that Celtics team was Derek White over threes, and he cashed that. And one of the things I have tonight is Derek White over threes.
Hey, bro, don't fix it, baby.
Absolutely. I want to make this point, though. Over at Bet365, they're hanging a 2.5 number for him at threes, but it's heavily juiced at -160. Over on FanDuel, they're hanging 3.5 at plus money. All right. So one thing I would say before you go on and make this bet, go on over to the prop shop. An incredible free tool over at FTN that we love to share. You could put in Derek White or anybody for that matter and wind up seeing what they're hanging the props across the books. Sometimes you can get a middle. Sometimes you could just make sure you go to the place with the best juice for you so you don't get bled dry. So for me, whether you don't think he gets to 4 and you want to go over the 2.5, you're paying -160 over at Bet365. I actually think the over 3.5 is safe, and you can get that at plus money over on FanDuel. I mean, Derek White so far, 13 threes in 33 attempts in just 4 games. He is shooting 39.4%. He's had at least 6 attempts beyond the arc in all 3 games. Boston, 201 3-pointers in 4 games that have been attempted. Okay, that is the most by far. And also, I look at the total in this game. The 233.5 is the highest on the board. And I even, after putting into Derek White last week, I was watching Knicks Celtics, and they literally made the point on the telecast multiple times that Missoula, the Celtics, have actually asked Derek White to shoot more threes this season. In the opener, they almost set a record for 30 in one game. Like I said, they're averaging almost 50 attempts from beyond the arc in this season so far. I think we're in an evolution. I cover baseball a lot here for FTN, and the shift, the 3 true outcomes, that has become an evolution, right? And you could have been ahead of it if you were in the middle of it. In the NFL, there's a passing league, right? And the evolution to things like the passing league, or the evolution to the committee running back style, right? If you are in the middle of that, you can get ahead of it. I think we are in the middle of an evolution in the NBA where we are going to the extreme relative to 3-pointers and 3-point attempts. So I'm going to continue, like my man Noop said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Derek White will, I think, get at least 4 3-pointers. But if you think he only gets 3, then pay the juice at -160 over at Bet365. Sam, let's go to you. I know that you want to get into the action. We have an interesting game between the Hawks and the Wizards, and you have 2 plays on this game. And what I really love, Sam, is a lot of times I'm on overs. A lot of the population is on overs, but you have a couple of unders in this game. Tell us about it, starting with Washington guy Jordan Poole.
Yeah, I mean, this was a matchup that we just saw, and one of the plays that I gave out the last time these two teams squared off was Jordan Poole under 6.5 assists. That line now, it's if you go under, it's plus money, but obviously all of his numbers are inflated because Kyle Kuzma won't be playing tonight. But here, I like the under 10.5 assists and rebounds. I think 6 to 7 assists is about right for me, even without Kuzma. I mean, I think his usage does increase, but it's hard to see it get any higher. On the season, he has 7 or fewer rebounds and assists in all 3 games, and he's just averaging 1 rebound and 5 assists per game. So he is due for regression. He's averaging 14 potential assists per game and only 5 actual assists. So I think eventually those assists are going to convert. But also, I mean, looking at this Washington team, I mean, I don't know how much regression is really going to happen. I don't know exactly who the knockdown shooters are for Washington. I mean, I like Koulibaly, but I don't know. He's probably their second best scorer tonight. So I don't feel great about that.
It's not SAR.
I guess.
No,
I guess
not.
Maybe SAR, but I mean, these are the guys that we're talking about. So again, I think his assist does regress eventually, but he's doing nothing on the boards. Again, like I said, averaging just 1 rebound. So we just saw him in this matchup the last time. And then Atlanta is allowing the 8th fewest assists per game to opposing shooting guards. So I like him to go under again. I don't feel as great about it as I did the last time giving it out with Kyle Kuzma in, but still, I feel like he has a lot of wiggle room to stay under double digits rebounds and assists.
All right, fair enough. You're in this game also on the other side with one of the big men for Atlanta, and once again, going with the under.
Yeah, I mean, this one really doesn't make sense to me. Again, we just saw this matchup, and Capella had a season-low 6 rebounds and assists, and he played a season-high 25 minutes because it was the first game without Onyeka Okongwu. So I don't really know why they'd hang up this 11.5 number. Again, like I said, he had his best usage, highest minutes, same matchup, and he had 6 total. So it's really just betting on the same thing as last time. He has 8 or fewer rebounds in 3 out of 4 games this season already. And he's averaging 7 rebounds on 11.5 chances. And he's converting on all of his assists, averaging 1.5 assists on 1.5 potential. So not a lot of usage there. Again, I'm kind of confused about this line. Why would be this high with Okongwu in? I mean, I think if Okongwu was out, I'd still lean the under. You probably wouldn't have the juice on it. But, yeah, I mean, I don't really have a good rationale for why they'd hang this up.
All right, fair enough. And if we don't think there's a good rationale, might as well go under it. And you can at minus 130 over on ESPN Bet. Remember, if you're watching, hammer the like button, subscribe so you get a notification when we go live. We do have a comment from a listener, and I saw this myself over on FanDuel. You got a 50% boost tonight for a 2-leg. I think it's a 2-leg parlay of double doubles. Anybody, we'll get to some other picks here. Anybody with some guys you may want to throw out? One thing I'm thinking about is going to that Oklahoma City, San Antonio game. A guy like Chet may be involved in the double-double because I think he's averaging, his prop for rebounds is 9.5. But if you remember, Chet finished second Rookie of the Year to Wemby, right? So now they're heads up. I think there could be a little extra boost in the tank there for Chet tonight. He's going to get it in points, and maybe he wants to show up, show out, and get to double-digit assists. So I'll ask you guys the same to let that marinate in your head for some other candidates there with the double-double. But as we say, if you're into the stream, if you want to ask some questions, put them in the chat. We will try to address them. I'll turn it over to you, Noops. One guy who's really doing it all for Charlotte is the youngest of the Ball brothers, LaMelo, and you have him having another good night tonight against the Raptors.
Yeah, it's kind of Sam talked about when he started the show. It's a lot about what happened last season, what is happening this season, how do we sort of break down some of the changes. And I should have pulled this up, but I'm quickly just going to double check because not only is LaMelo Ball back, LaMelo Ball is shooting and shooting a lot, especially from deep here. I was actually looking at his game log earlier and was wondering, like, oh, the field goal attempts are a little bit down. It turns out I was reading his 3-point attempts.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely outrageous. Looking back here, 4 for 12, 9 for 14. 2 for 10. The ball is going up. He is scoring in bunches. One of my favorite things about FTN, we not only have the projection tree to watch, but I love the same game parlay tool. And I look at this. We've got LaMelo here. I just want to check again. His point total is only 26.5. We've got LaMelo. I'm sorry, I lost the game already. This is what happened. I got all confused thinking about the double-doubles here, and I got all turned around. But, yeah, really like this spot for LaMelo here. Not sure why he's not coming up all of a sudden.
Maybe
okay, there we go.
Yes, right
yes,
now behind the scenes.
Yeah. Okay, so that may be a couple things moving on. Yeah, we've again 26.5, 27.5. His total is 29, almost 30 points there. Using that tool as well. If I put in 29.5. At FTN, we've got that basically at even money. You can find plus 130, plus 140 there as well. That's what I like by the tool so much. It also gives you a good way to look at the alt. So this is something I'm not only going to just be playing the over. I think that's a great play. I know not everybody has access to alts, but if you do, if you've got a DraftKings, if you've got FanDuel, and if you haven't signed up, go through FTN. We'll get you some great sign-up bonuses. But take a look there. Play the baseline here, 26.5, 27.5. Sprinkle a little on 30 plus, and even 35 plus.
All right, fair enough. Remember, it's only 26.5 right there against Toronto. You can get that at minus 125 at MGM. And Noops is saying if you want to take a few steps up the ladder, he is encouraging you to consider that to be sure. All right, I got another play. It's not a prop. It is a total in this one. I'm reminded of the mid-90s. I'm reminded of, Jeff Van Gundy hanging on people's legs and stuff. And I'm going back to Knicks Heat tonight, and I'm going back to the under 215.5. You can get that at Bet365. Listen, these are the two slowest pace teams in the NBA. The Knicks are averaging only 94 possessions per 48 minutes. The Miami Heat, not much more, 96 possessions for your 48 minutes. So I believe this is going to be a slower game. I just talked about the evolution to the three-pointer that's happening in the NBA. Well, don't tell that to Thibodeau and the Knicks because they are only putting up 28 three-pointers a game. Remember, I said Boston is at about 50 per game. Well, the Knicks are dead last putting up the three, so they're not getting points in bunches in that way. And then also Miami, they're not scoring. All right, so far, and I know it's a very small sample size, but only 4 games so far this season, but their 105.7 points is second worst in the league, but their defense is there. They're only allowing 106 per game. You put it all together, I think this is going to be a game that is pretty slow. I think this is a game that's going to be shot from inside, and I think that both of these defenses are there and will be able to hold these teams. So that's why I don't think we get to 216. Call it a 107, 101 kind of game, in my opinion. I think this is going to be one of those blue-collar, mid-90s kinds of games, especially when you look at the pace. These are literally the two slowest teams in the NBA. And when everybody's shooting threes, the Knicks most certainly are not. So I've got the Knicks and Heat staying under the number of 215.5. You can get that at the standard fare, minus 110 over at Bet365. Sam, let's go on back over to you here. I know you've got something in Bulls and Magic. I was joking about Paolo, who put up a 50-burger his last time out. One of the guys preventing him possibly from going off again is going to be Nikolai Vucevic, but you have him again under one of his combined props.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, Orlando's always been a tough defense. We're seeing it again, but regardless of the matchup, I mean, on the season, he's been under this line in 3 out of 4 games. He's averaging 10.3 rebounds and 3 assists. So on top of already averaging low in this number, the matchup is just brutal. Orlando is allowing the fewest rebounds and assists per game to opposing center. And he's been under this game in 3 out of 5 games against Orlando already, averaging 10.8 rebounds and 3.2 assists. So again, as far as season long goes, he's around that 13 number. And then this matchup is just brutal. So it's another line that doesn't really make sense to me. I think 13.5 is more of a fair line just based on a season average. And it should be lower, if anything, not higher. So not even a lot of juice, minus 129 there. So yeah, give me the Vucevic under there.
Hey, Sam, let me ask you a question to follow up. You're saying like based on the season averages, there's only like 3 or 4 games so far this season, right? So it's kind of hard at this point in time. What I want to ask you is, at what point in the season do you start to be like, oh, the averages matter a little bit, or the fact that he's done that in his last 4 games, the trends, that sort of thing? Because, 4 games in to an 82 game schedule, that's like asking me even before one NFL game has finished, right? To try to hang your hat on something. I understand, kind of the averages matter at any point in time, but when is it that you start to really put stock in, say, the 2024-2025 season averages as opposed to maybe what you've seen in years past?
Yeah, I mean, I would say we're still probably a long ways out from that. I'm glad you mentioned that, because specifically on the Vucevic, I do like including him his averages from last year. So going back to last year, he's averaging 10.6 rebounds, 3.3 assists, so almost exactly in line on this season. The guys that I do want to pay attention to this season, I mean, specifically today, where I have Chris Paul and Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, me ripping off their averages from last year on 2 completely different teams, it doesn't really make sense. So the only thing I can do is give you, here's a 4-game sample so far. Here's a potential rebound. Here's a potential assist. Here's Chris Paul with Wemby. This is what Karl Anthony Towns rotation looks like with the Knicks. So, I mean, it's not a great gauge after a 4-game sample, but it's what we have. And I mean, bookmakers, they're making lines based on the 4 games that we have as well. So we're sort of working with the same data here. But as far as guys go, like, again, going back to Vooch, it's almost exactly in line as last season. Almost exactly the same rebounds, almost exactly the same assists. So I want to pay attention to that. Through 4 games, it looks just like last year. I would still take the under last year, and I'm taking it again this year. So on those guys specifically, I will have write-ups based on last year, even based on previous matchup. Orlando against Chicago. I mean, I think I can. Maybe Zach LaVine was out that game, but I think I can pay attention to the matchup just dating back to last season. For Karl Anthony Towns, going back to that example, I mean, looking at his averages with the T-Wolves, against Miami, I mean, I can sort of use that in the sample size, but it's not as meaningful with just a completely different supporting cast. But as far as the write-ups go, I do want to include the small sample we have, because that's the only data we have thus far. So,
No, that makes sense. And I think specifically, when you highlight guys that are in different situations, right? Different teams. I remember looking at the Chris Paul assist number, one of his first games, it was 7.5. And you can't do that based on what he did last season, right? He's in a completely different spot. He's going to be starting. Oh yeah. And he's got Victor Wembanyama that all he's got to really do is throw the ball up or find him in a decent position, and Victor can do the rest. So I think it was 7.5 early on. I hit the over on that one. So I hear you. It's kind of a moving target at this point. So I appreciate, Sam, when you say that on sometimes you go back to previous year stats. Noops, what do you think about that kind of same question, right? Like, at what point in the season do you start to trust what we've seen, say, in the first 10 games, the first 15 games versus what you're seeing last year? And does it change for guys that are in different situations, whether it's because that they have moved teams or the composition of the teams look different than it did last year? You're muted, Noops.
So I think, again, it comes into kind of like what Sam was talking about. How much change has there been over the offseason? So you look at a team like the Celtics. I can use last year's data for the Celtics. I can use this season's data for the Celtics. It's effectively the same basketball team. Orlando, pretty much the same. Chicago, a little bit different. But you get down to a team sort of like the Hornets, where they didn't really have LaMelo Ball much last year. Filled in a lot of different players around the edges. I think that team is definitely different enough. There are even teams that, for the most part, sort of feel the same. You look kind of at the Houston Rockets. They're actually a little bit different, again, given that they're healthy. Minnesota and stuff like that. So if there's some continuity, again, like you kind of have in Boston, like you have in a place like Miami, even Atlanta a little bit, you can use some of the stuff from last season. But for teams that have changed a little bit, it really, takes about 10, 15 games before I feel strongly. Now, again, that can kind of change because certain teams you'll see they gel a little bit quicker versus other teams, and you kind of feel a little bit more set. But it can be tough. You do find yourself sometimes handicapped and looking at just a 5-6 game sample because really that's all you have that's relevant.
Yeah, a team that is gelling in my opinion. I was interested in them at the beginning of the season, and so far they have been a wagon. They are the biggest favorite on the board tonight, and I am not scared. I'm like Petey Pablo. I ain't never scared. I will lay the 12 points and give me the Thunder tonight, laying the 12 against the San Antonio Spurs. I mean, I think this looks like it could be the best team in the league. They were the 1 seed last year. I think they have that year extra of experience. I think the addition, especially a guy like Caruso, a guy like Hartenstein down the road, really helps them. Look at their 3 games so far. They won by 15 at Denver already. They won by 19 at Chicago already. They won by 24 in their last game against the Atlanta Hawks. Listen, they allow only 95 points per game. That is the best points allowed in the association, the best defense in the association. And San Antonio, despite Victor Wembanyama, they can't score. They are 28th in the NBA with 106 per game, and their pace is really slow. I told you about the Knicks and the Heat. Well, the third slowest team in the NBA is the San Antonio Spurs at only 97 possessions per game. And here's the deal. Here's the deal. I just don't think they're going to be able to keep up. Okay. Like, it works maybe for San Antonio if they're against in a matchup where they can dictate pace. That ain't going to happen in Oklahoma City. Okay. I think OKC is going to get out. I already told you the idea about how Chet may have something stuck in his craw for losing the rookie of the year to Victor Wembanyama. I was interested in looking at Chet double-double. I was interested in looking at Chet props as well. I decided to not get too cute about it all, though. And I think if Oklahoma City can beat Denver by this much, if they are averaging a margin of victory in the high teens. A wise man once told me, even when it looked to football, you take the highest total on the board, you go over it. You take the lowest total on the board, you go under it. So I see this big number of 12, and there are 12 and a half at some places, but at FanDuel, you can get it at 12 on the number. I am not scared of this one. I think it is another blowout victory for the Thunder against the Spurs. And quite frankly, I think Oklahoma City is so impressive. You saw what they did against Denver. That may be more like alarm bells against Denver, if you want to know the truth, based on the way that they have gotten out of the gate. But I think OKC continues to roll. I am not scared. I will lay the 12 points Thunder against the Spurs tonight. Let me get your thoughts, guys, real quick. I believe the Thunder, if they take a step forward, guys like Chet, guys like Williams, they have SGA as a bona fide MVP candidate, and they're a young team, and they got that year of experience. Being the 1 seed last year, right? Going through some playoff series. Sam, I think OKC is very, very scary for every team that's not named Boston.
Yeah, I mean, I thought they were the best team in the West last year, and I think they're the best team in the West this year. Obviously, we saw what happened in the Dallas series, but I mean, you put OKC in a series. I mean, even last year, if we ran that series back again, I would have taken OKC for sure. So I honestly think that they're separating themselves sort of in a tier of their own in the Western Conference. Honestly, if you look at the entire NBA, I think I would probably just put OKC and Boston up there in a tier of their own, and then everyone else. You know, you can make a case for the T-Wolves, Nuggets, Mavs, whoever else in the West, but it's pretty clear that OKC is the best all-around team, given the combination of youth, offense, defense, coaching. I don't think anyone else really comes close. So I'm with you there. It is a big number, but I mean, we've been seeing all night. I mean, day in and day out that they're not afraid to run the score up, and I think they will try again. I think it's a great point that you made about Chet. I do think that guys like that will come out with an extra oomph underneath them. So, yeah, I like that narrative a lot as well.
Fair enough. So remember, we had the listener or the viewer talking about maybe a double-double. Chet could be a guy for a double-double. Sam, what are you working on this week over at FTN? You know, I know you do your write-ups. I know you do the articles. What else you got coming out so far this week when it comes to the NBA?
Yeah, NBA. I mean, every week I'll be posting the daily bets. All the bets first go out to the write-ups, go into the tracker, go in the Discord for the subs for first. I mean, especially in the morning, you see these massive line movements. So it's definitely helpful to be in the Discord. You guys get the plays as soon as I take them, as soon as I'm done with the write-up. So yeah, be on the lookout for that tomorrow morning. And then, yeah, a lot of NFL content tomorrow as well. I know you and I got that show. So yeah, it'll be NBA in the morning and then NFL throughout the day.
Yeah, absolutely. What Sam's talking about is tomorrow in the morning, it'll be Sam, myself, and good old Chris Meany doing the NFL version of this show, the NFL betting show. So, like I said, that's why you got to subscribe. Okay, that's why you got to get down with us. So this way you get notifications when we go live, like we just did here on the NBA betting show. Noops, I'll finish up with you. What do you got cooking around Hoops with Noops and all else things that you got here with FTN?
Yeah, always grinding. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, I do some nice full write-ups. Not only the games I bet on, but also the games I don't like, because I think it's important to help everybody get a little bit of context, because maybe you want to bet something I didn't bet. At least you kind of give a little bit of a picture there. And then, like Sam said, you got to be in the Discord. Lots of great stuff going on there. I'm constantly in there answering questions, offering ideas, sharing more player props, things that maybe don't have time to make it into the articles, and also having some live bets. We've had some pretty good success, barring last night. I just didn't expect the Mavericks and Timberwolves to shoot 60% the entire game, but such is life. A lot of fun in there. It's really great. So yeah, get in there and wait for Hoops or Noops. 5 days of me, 5 days of basketball, 4 days written, 1 day here. What more could you ask for?
Now you could ask for 6 or 7, but even on the 7th day, the Lord rested.
Even God
so I
rests.
think it's okay. Absolutely. Our guy MLB Dream, is so sharp when it comes to baseball. He says, I take them before I post them on Bet's Twitter. He does that because he knows that when we post them, then all of a sudden people hammer it and it's going to move the number. So I agree with that strategy. Me and Dream, we disagree about, the fan down the right field foul line in Yankee Stadium last night. I was kind of okay with it. It looks like Major League Baseball.
Garbage.
Listen, the Yankees
I'd be swinging. No one is catching a home run in front of me.
He needed a spark at that point in time. Listen, I was clearly over the line. I will say this. The bars across the street, Billy's and Stan's, if those guys can't get into the building, they can go to those bars. I doubt they will have to pay for a drink for the rest of their lives.
That dude should get rocked.
So for my guy, Sam Choudhury, and of course, Noops, make sure you're in the Discord. Make sure you get down with the FTN crew. We've got so many great promo codes to help you do so and get all of this great content. Like, respond, smash that, and put those plays together. You'll be thankful next week when you come on back and your balance is a little bit higher. So for my guys, I am the spitting statistician, Dane Martinez. We'll see you next week right back here on the NBA Betting Show. We out of here. Peace.